Welcome to the Confident Speaker Journey, where we have real conversations with business professionals learning to speak with more confidence, clarity, and authenticity. This journey isn't about perfection. It's about finding your voice, being seen, and speaking about yourself and your business with confidence. Welcome to the Confident Speaker Journey, a space for real stories behind the voices you hear in business and leadership. This podcast is about the moments people rarely talk about, the nerves, the self-doubt, the quiet fear of being seen, and the courage that it takes to speak anyway. So let me introduce you to my guest today, Chris Bindley. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Sophia. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Let me get started with asking you, where did it all begin? When you first stepped into your business or leadership role, what was your relationship with your voice like?
Yeah, good question. I guess if we talk specifically about this business, my journey started in 2010. I formed the company that I have now, which is Straight Up Digital. And I guess to answer your question around where I felt my voice was at, I would say almost non-existent. I mean, I came from a sales background, right? So I've never had a problem, talking and hearing my voice. But I guess from a business owner's perspective, I wouldn't even say I felt like a fraud or a fake because I wasn't even ready for that. So, it started in 2010, and I guess from there it was a case of uncovering myself as I went along. And it's obviously been a hot minute, but I would say to answer your question would have been I probably wasn't even aware of where my voice was at. That's probably as close an answer as I can give. Um, I I don't know that I was even aware of where my mind or my voice was at. So, I didn't even really feel like a fraud or a fake because I was a newbie. So, way back then was almost where I was not even building from scratch. It was probably from one level below ground level.
Yeah. So that's like 16 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've had probably 10 years sales experience before that, but as a business owner, and I'd started little businesses prior to that, but I guess the real shot was starting this business. And I mean, this business is, over 15 years old now. But it's been a journey since then.
Yeah. And can you remember a moment when you realized your voice wasn't just helpful, it was necessary for your business to grow? Was there a specific moment when you knew you had to step into that? It was a turning point.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I've had 2 or 3 real goes at kicking this business off. I mean, the first round I started in 2010, and I tell the short version. I have a business that was founded in 2010, but 3 months later, I was broke. I went back into the corporate workforce. A year and a half later, I was ready to give it another go, and then probably most recently was in 2018. And I think for me, the real moment was when people that I owed money to in 2011, which is kind of after the first go, decided they actually wanted their money. And I really had to not just be, the sales guy, but I had to really lean in and really learn everything about the craft and really, I guess, use my. I've always been that asset, but not realizing it probably until that point. And so it was very specifically when I had to build the business or die.
And that was your motivation, was to build it, to first off to pay those people back. Were you honoring that? Was that where you're at?
100%. I was so close to, as I think a lot of founders can appreciate. I was so close to losing it all for, gosh, many months and potentially years. But the interesting thing about it is that the nature of the business that I have, um, finding customers is not easy, but easier. And delivering work for customers is easy, but putting those both together and being true business owner and owning my own destiny was something I really had to work out. I kind of been a bit of a passenger because as a sales guy, you you don't really have to be in control of what the business looks like. You just need to be in control of the conversation you're having with the person in front of you. But when you're the business owner, you're everyone. You're the accountant, you're the tax person, you're the bookkeeper, you're the ops, you're the sales, you're the client relationship management. And I was probably playing a part-time game in my mind, and that for me was like if I didn't do it properly, then I was going to go broke, and not only broke, but family relied on me, and we probably would have lost it all. So that was initially the biggest motivator for me.
It's a good one as well. So, can I ask you what was happening around you at that time? So, you knew you had to make this happen. You knew you had to get out there and honor your debts that you were owing to other people to support your family. Was that experience, did it affect your voice? Like, did any sort of negativity come in regards to self-doubt, and did that have an effect on your voice and your messaging?
100% every day. It's so binary that you have. I mean, we'd never been in a more connected society, and we just kind of go back to 2010. We probably weren't as. I mean, there was social media was around, but it wasn't as big a thing. So I was a little bit less connected that way. But we really have never had more access to information. We just don't use it. And so for me, at the time, there was a whole bunch of turmoil in keeping my mind right to be able to be, at an optimum level. I mean, I had poor diet. I had, the typical vices that early to middle aged bloke might have, and I wasn't looking after myself, and that reflected exactly in, I guess, where I was at from a mental health perspective. And so for me, there was a real epiphany to think, well, if I'm actually going to do this, I've got to do it right. So I feel like even though I succeeded, and that was 2011. I probably didn't get it right until when I really kind of made my last growth for the business, which was in 2018. It was a pretty big, compelling event that year that might have changed things for me, which was around my health. But certainly from 2011 to 2018, I moved more from external influences to internal influences, been able to internally motivate myself, and that's probably been the start of my mindset journey.
Beautiful. Tell us some more about that. Like, you obviously found yourself in a turning point, like you said. What was it that you were reaching for to receive that mindset? What was the thing that clicked you into maybe searching for support? What you needed to get you through that?
Well, I think for me, I've been searching or had been searching my whole entire life for the secret. And it's hilarious because I didn't actually get a chance to read and watch The Secret until probably close around that 2018, right? But I was looking externally. I was looking for the solution. I was basically looking for everything and anything. And you know, it probably took me 6 or so years to realize that I was actually what I was looking for. Now that's I've been people that know me would say that I say that often, but the fact is, and I can remember a very distinct moment. I was at the surf club. We used to have my daughter went to Nippers, and I'd just done my bronze medallion, and I was out the back swim with the kid. We both had boards, and we had a wave. And this is probably like there was the click for me, and that it was around that 2018 as well. And we both lost our boards in a wave, which is no big deal. The thing was, though, the kid was terrified because he's now out in the deep ocean, and none of us have boards, and there's some waves around, and he screamed that he'd lost his board, and I said, "It's okay because we have me." And that was kind of like the click when I was like, "Huh, I'm actually like," and that was the certainly I didn't just wake up the next day and say, "Hey, I'm the guy," but I really started thinking, well, maybe I actually don't need anything else. Maybe what I'm searching for isn't out there. Maybe there's no spiritual awakening or anything like that. The aha moment, and I chuckled to myself when I said that because I realized I'm who I've been looking for. I've been searching for, and that was, I mean, I was probably 40 when that happened, in probably early 40s actually. So for me, I spent 40 years looking for everything except for me. And when I found me, that just clicked.
Beautiful. I love that. You found your inner voice. Yeah, and what a moment to be put into to be able to give your son certainty, but later reflect and feel that that was an aha moment that really gave you the realization that you're right where you needed to be, connecting with you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, for me, obviously, and I think, some people have defining moments. For me, the
Yeah.
benefit of hindsight is 2020. And at the time, I probably didn't reflect on that, but there are a whole bunch of sequences of events that happened after that. Removal of certain things from your life, that allowed you to get to that point. But what I found was I reached a point, and we can talk about that a little bit later, where it started to bubble over. So it was an internal thing that once you practice it enough, you start to find that you actually have more than enough to go around. And then hence, probably in the last 5 or so years, people who know me would talk to people about the fact that, I'm always sharing stuff with them because once you click and once you realize you're the solution, you want to tell everybody about, not that I want to tell everybody that I'm the solution. I want to tell everybody that they are the solution, and it's infectious. And that's probably been my journey of late, is helping others to realize you know what their inner voice looks like.
Yeah, I love that. And that's something that we share. It's a rewarding feeling, for sure, to watch somebody connect, with that innate wisdom. It's always there. That connection is always there, and it's a beautiful thing to witness. Okay, well, let's move on to the next question. In your early days, where did speaking stretch you the most?
Yeah, so interesting question. I didn't have in my corporate years, I had plenty of opportunities to speak, but they were generally on matters that I was really well versed with. And so in the early days, pre business owner, uh, I was, I didn't do a lot of public speaking about stuff that was more complex than being the technician in the field. So I certainly didn't speak on leadership. It was more operational stuff. And when I opened my business, I also probably for the first 3 or 4 years didn't have much of an opportunity to speak publicly. It's really when I started to become involved in networking where I realized I actually am not that great at public speaking. And interestingly, the two things that that I'm probably or historically was the most afraid of was public speaking, and you and I have spoken about this before. I'd rather have a tooth pulled, uh, and remembering people's names. So public speaking came first. I got rid of that first, but even still today, if you ever watch me closely at a networking event, I will run through my mind who the person's name is even before I introduce them. And I'm talking about people I know. So, I think for me, where it really shone through was, as a business owner, you have to go out and promote your business. And you can't do that with anybody else. You can pay a salesperson to do that, but I was the salesperson. So turning up to public events in a networking capacity and speaking about stuff I'm familiar with, but also maybe stuff I'm not, that was where I was kind of like, wow, this is something I actually have to work on.
Yeah, yeah. I can totally relate to that. I would go blank, forgetting people's names that I know really well, and it was like, "What's going on here?" I just lost being present, I think, and,
I, I even
yeah.
have I even have this thing where it doesn't happen often. I think it's certainly tied to how I feel. on the day, if I'm tired or stressed or something along those lines, where I will actually prompt somebody to introduce themselves. Case in point, what's today, Friday? Yesterday, I actually asked for one of the people in the team that I was talking to go and introduce themselves to the person behind the counter because I'd forgotten their name. And it was because I was tired and stressed. I knew what it was because in my normal state, I'm good with names. But if you put me under the pressure, those are little things that bubble over. So that's pretty interesting.
That's really interesting. That's a good tip for people to realize is that to be mindful of their neurology and know how it's affecting their ability to communicate clearly, and know that it's okay. It's okay to, like you did, find a way to navigate around that issue very creatively. Yeah, that's excellent. Okay, so if you were to look at your relationship with speaking today, how does it feel now compared to where you began?
I would say that I'm, as crazy as this may sound to you because you know me, I'm not a natural speaker. Um, and I know you probably disagree with me. For me, the stuff that I normally talk around about in front of you is stuff that I'm innately, intrinsically knowledgeable on. And you chuck me into a new conversation in a public speaking environment, and I'll probably clam up. So, for example, changing, business types and stuff like that. I still have to go back to the consciously competent part. But what I do know now is that if you said to me, hey, could you give me 5 minutes on subject X? I'd have a pretty good idea of the framework. And I'm a real, I don't know, maybe this is a bloke thing, but I'm a real analytical, data driven guy. So I will break it up and into its segments, knowing that I can talk about stuff and timing myself rather than there's plenty of people out there. Maybe it's an experience thing where they can just talk on the subject. And I think maybe I'll get there eventually. It's interesting. I think of it kind of like how you would get a horse to not be afraid of a whip. You literally stand next to the horse and keep whipping it until eventually it's just normal. And I think that that's very true. Obviously you have to overcome it, of course. That's the whole purpose for why you have such a valuable solution for people. But that practiced automatic process eventually becomes normal. And I think eventually with me, it'll filter into subjects that I maybe don't know so much about. But it's definitely come a long way, as evidence if I think about the first networking or group event I've been to where I felt, you've shared this before, mine probably wasn't as extreme as yours, but I felt like I rushed it. Now I'm realizing that pauses are powerful and that people are actually listening. So, it feels a lot more comfortable these days, but it's still something that I have to wear as a coat to be conscious of.
Mm, mm. Yeah, there's some valuable nuggets in there, what you've shared, and that is structure. When you've got a structure, it is easier to speak. And not only are you analytical, but your audience is analytical. They're looking at the logic of your speech and trying to make sense of it. So structure is not only good for you, but it's also good for your audience, and it's necessary. It's actually a necessity. And another point that you spoke about, and this is something that freaks a lot of people out, including myself in the past, is that we expect ourselves to speak about a subject that we're not versed on. And that's just not normal. That's not natural. And
Mm,
for anyone who's being put on the spot like that, then there comes a time, well, I encourage people to say, well, you know what, that's not my subject, but I'm happy to do the research and come back to you. Unless you know enough to go through a structure, I
mm,
wouldn't even attempt it. And
point.
there's this thing that happens when we get put on the spot like that is we think that we have to respond. We get into, the belief that I must come up with something right now, but realistically, it's not logical. if you don't know your subject. So, for instance, recently I was asked, and I've taken up the offer to speak at the International Women's Day. And initially, I was told that the subject was about equality. And there's two subjects for International Women's Day. There's one for the UN, and there's one for our communities. And so I immediately said to the person I was speaking to, "Oh, I'm sorry, but that's not my subject. I could do some research on it, but I can tell you right now, I don't feel comfortable with that subject." And then he said to me, well, later on, he emailed me and said, well, I got it wrong. Just want to let you know that the subject is give to gain. And I said, now you're speaking my language. This is my
Yeah,
subject. Yeah.
that's
So
so
I
cool.
think that is really cool. And it made me feel powerful in the moment that, you know what, it's okay if it's not my subject. I can let that one go. And that was a turning point for me. That was something that I experienced just recently that was good for me to consciously recognize that it's okay if it's not your subject, just
I can
to
really relate
decline.
to that. I can really
Mm.
relate to that because I feel, and I always come back to that kind of guy focus thing. Guys, they always see themselves as trying to be the person who fixes stuff. So, person asks you a question, it's posed as a problem, you look for the solution. And leaning into not being a know-it-all is probably quite healthy, actually.
Yeah, and it's just knowing your capacity, right? It's
Mm.
all right. So let me ask you, when people hear you talk about what you do, what do you most hope that they will feel, not just understand? So from a head, heart, coherence, like receiving, but also feeling, because that's how we do communication, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a very good way of putting it. I would hope that they feel the value to them, so that they take the intellectual knowledge on board, but that what they get in terms of a feeling is value, because I feel that if you're just talking about stuff and they can intellectualize it, it's fine. But if they can understand the value that applies to them and get value out of it, then that would be my ideal outcome.
Yeah, nice. I love that. Yeah, that's one I tune into as well. All right, the next question is, if you could gently place one thought or a reminder or a piece of encouragement into the hands of someone who's still afraid to use their voice, what would that be?
I've been talking a lot about this lately. I would say this: it doesn't matter. And what I mean by that is, someone said, I don't know whether it was that somebody said it, but I certainly read it. There's 8 billion people on this planet. In 100 years' time, no one's going to remember your name. I don't remember my great great grandfather or great great grandmother's name. That's, I think, around 100 years ago. And if that's the case and it doesn't matter, then ultimately it's just an experience. So I would say to people, and I know I do it, still catch myself. I put way too much importance on the outcome of that public speaking journey or whatever the case is. Um, it it just doesn't matter what other people think of you, as long as you know that you're doing something that lights your own soul up. Because if it doesn't matter and you aren't going to be remembered, I mean, you could argue someone like Elon Musk might be, but let's hope it's for the right reasons. Then you should just be thinking about it as an experience, and the sum total of what we have for our whole entire life is just a whole bunch of experiences. So do we want to have those experiences and sit in levels of anxiety and stress, or do we just want to enjoy ourselves? And I'd like to think it should be the latter.
Love that. Don't sweat the small stuff. And it's all the big stuff and it's all small stuff.
Yeah, true.
All right, last question. If your speaking journey or leadership energy were an animal, what would it be? And why does that image feel right for you?
Hmm. What type of animal is a calming animal? I can't picture an animal um, because I can't actually picture an animal that would be a calm animal. You know what? Maybe a sloth, simply because I I would like to hope that my now I'm sure there's a whole bunch of anxiety going underneath those sloths. You just can't see it. I just what I would like people to take away. It's probably a terrible analogy. Is
Oh,
that
no, it's
what
great.
I give to people? I hope is calming, because right now I said this before. We've never been more connected and accessible to information, but we don't go anywhere without this. We don't
Yeah,
go anywhere without being connected, and everybody, because of that fact, is so edgy. I mean, this week alone, I've had some long days, and I'm really trying to consciously switch off. But if I could describe, if the animal is a sloth, and it's a sloth out of Ice Age, I'll take it. I can't think of his name, but that's that guy, because I
yeah,
really would hope that my public speaking helps people be a little more calm in an otherwise crazy world we live in.
yeah, yeah. That's excellent. I love your animal totem. Yeah. And it's not one that I would have thought for you, and I have seen you speak a lot,
What would
and
you
I
say?
love what would I say? I would say an eagle. Yeah,
Okay.
because when I see you speak, I just see you open and flying and open to you're open and quite a great channel, not just when you're speaking, and there's leadership in your when you speak. There's great direction and guidance, and outside of seeing you publicly, so being in conversation with you, you're doing that still. You're open to intuitive information. The fact that I'm using this app, when I decided to do it, you were the first person to that I spoke to that I'd like to, look at doing a podcast, and the information was just there. The connection was there. Yep, let's get on a call, and you're open and flowing with information. I'm so grateful for that quality in you. So yeah, that's what I would say. An eagle, you oversee, you soar and you oversee, and you
Hey, I
just
like that. I'll take that. And then perhaps on the weekends I can be the sloth.
you sloth. Yes. Well, the yin
I
and the
love it.
yang, hey, we all need that. My
Totally.
partner said that, for someone who's so active like you make a fantastic cat. When you relax, you're like a cat. You just sprawl and you're just totally 100% in relaxation mode.
It's funny because I see you in a public setting, and I actually see that in you too, because you're a very uh, controlled person. I'm sure there's crazy there somewhere, but I see a lot of the control, and I can see the prancy little cat stretching
Yeah.
and doing all that stuff. So that's actually pretty accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. Licking himself. Yeah. Cruising. I've got this. Everybody's
That's
running around me.
hilarious.
Oh, hey, Chris, I want to thank you so much for joining me today on this podcast. It's been fantastic sharing your journey with you, your stories, and the valuable nuggets that have come out of your conversation. So grateful for this connection. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Okay, bye for now, everybody. Thanks for joining us, those of you who are watching the recording. And yeah, we'll be back next week. Bye for now.